Hi, this is Brennan Davis from the Bedrock blog and Bedrock Games, and today I mainly want to talk about why I haven't been on in a while. I've been working on Wandering Heroes of Ogre Game. We just got the proof. You can probably tell that I'm a little disheveled because I've been trying to go over some formatting issues with it. So I've been spending most of my time just kind of getting ready for that, and I haven't had as much time to do reviews. I have been watching a lot of stuff, and I have had movies I wanted to review. I just haven't had time to really sit down and think. And like I like when I do a review here, I like to kind of think about it a little bit, so that I'm just not just talking randomly, and so I at least know that I have something to say. And I usually wait until I see a movie that really prompts some thoughts. And the movies that I've seen most recently, while I enjoyed them, they haven't really prompted any interesting thoughts for me to want to review them. So I figured I'd talk about some of the stuff I've been watching and listening to here, and then I would show you the Ogre Gate book when I'm done with that. And I'm just going to give like really brief discussions of these. The first movie that I saw was a Choyuan movie called Duel of the Century. I thought this was really fun. It was based on a Gulong book, and it's got some really interesting plot twists and things like that. But really, what makes it work is the characters. And this is one where rather than like a lone swordsman, and there is a lone hero in this, but he's got a lot of friends, and the group of friends are kind of important. So I thought that this was it isn't as much of the typical sort of lone guy wandering around doing his thing. He's got some buddies, and the buddies are interesting, and the plot is certainly interesting. The final duel is absolutely crazy. They got these wire, what is it? These wire, not wire, these paper walls that the guys are fighting through, and I enjoyed it. But again, it wasn't like my absolute favorite Shoryuken movie that I saw. It wasn't one where it's like, wow, I gotta go back and watch this again and again and again. But it was enjoyable, so I would recommend it. The characters in the book are all interesting and fun. Sorry, in the movie are all interesting and fun. The other movie I saw was a Chang Cheh movie called The Wandering Swordsman. This one was really interesting. It's an older Chang Cheh film, but it has a lot of lightness kung fu, especially at the very beginning, and the way that they did the wire work. I don't know. I'm not terribly familiar with the history of wire work, but this seems quite early for the kind of wire work they were doing. So I was a little surprised to see it, and I don't know where this fits in the history of that. But usually when you watch, I think this was 1969, and I find when I see movies from that period, the wire work is either very primitive, or they use like mainly trampolines, or they'll do something like they'll have a guy jump off a building but reverse it so it looks like he's leaping up on the building, and this had substantial. It doesn't look like the wire work you would see in like the late 70s and 80s, but it definitely looks like wire work to me. And there was a lot of it, and they mixed the trampoline wire work they did in slow motion at the beginning, and Chang Cheh likes slow motion, but this was probably the most stunning use of slow motion I've seen in a Chang Cheh movie, and I've seen a lot of his films, but I was very surprised by how the slow motion worked with that, and it was a good film. It's got it's kind of like a crazy plot, and it's and it follows sort of the pattern that you expect with Chang Cheh, where it ends with the hero. And a lot of bloodshed and a lot of pain for the hero. But the interesting twist to this one is he's kind of misled by a group of bandits into doing something wrong, and then he tries to make up for it. So I thought the plot was really cool. I thought the story was really fun, and that the action sequences were good. I really liked the wire work, the lightness kung fu stuff really worked for me in this one, and that was kind of, if I remember correctly, that was the main character's big thing. He was like a lightness kung fu guy. So again, I liked both these movies, but they weren't like hugely impactful enough for me to want to do a review. I do have a movie that I saw that I want to do a review of, but I'll save that for another day. But I just wanted to kind of get on and talk about some things because I know I haven't been on in a while. I didn't want people to think, oh, I just forgot about this. So the other thing that I've been sort of watching and listening to is an album that I got. And I don't normally do album reviews here, but this is one that I've been waiting for a long time. And that is Hunted by Khemmis. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing the band's name correctly, but about a year ago they put out an album called Absolution that was absolutely incredible. I'm a little old now to be getting excited about albums, so I still buy them. I still occasionally check them out, but I don't usually get that excited when I see an album or when I buy an album. And this one, I saw the cover and I was like, wow, that's very intriguing. And then I listened to it, and I hadn't had the experience of really being wowed by an album since I don't know, maybe like 1992. Like that was the last time I really had that kind of response to getting a record from a band. This band does some interesting things, and I know that a lot of people have compared them to another band called Pallbearer. I'm not a big Pallbearer person, so I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be good to go to for point to point comparison of these bands. I have heard Pallbearer. I think that they're different enough, but again, maybe a more hardcore fan would be able to weigh in. Because I don't know what exactly people are picking up on. That's the point of comparison. But to me, what this band sounds like, and again, I know it's like a really, like now these days everybody kind of talks about DNA in music and like what band this band derives from and all that. And I think that's a little bit BS, because I don't know, when you have a group of four guys, it's very hard, I think, to trace the roots of all their influences. And back when I got into this kind of music, this is technically a doom metal album. When I was first into this back in the early '90s, we didn't really, the internet wasn't like it is today. In fact, I think we barely had the internet, and you certainly didn't have like Wikipedia where you could go and find all the sort of the history of each band. And so the only way that we had to figure out where did this band come from was to go into the sleeve and look at the bands that they called out. So I remember there was a band called Solitude Aeternus, which is relevant to this review, that I really liked, and I went into their sleeve and I found bands like Saint Vitus and I think Count Raven, and I think there was another band on there like maybe Sirathungal might have been in their sleeve. I know I saw it in somebody's, but the point is, you would kind of go through that sleeve and you would find the bands that they listened to and then go back. And so that's how I found Saint Vitus. That's how I found Count Raven. At one point I accidentally bought a Lizzie Borden album because I was trying to buy a Thin Lizzy album because I was following the trail, and I was really disappointed. But anyways, now whenever I read reviews of these things, that's all people talk about is the DNA. And I think it's more productive to talk about what it reminds you of, because I don't know that you can really say, oh, you can trace this band's stuff to Thin Lizzy and to that and to this and to this. You can hear tones of it. You can hear like, oh yeah, that sounds like Black Sabbath, but I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. So anyways, what this album sounds like to me is, and other people have commented on this, it definitely opens up like a Metallica album from like the Ride the Lightning era. It's got that grand rising sound, but they also have elements of Iron Maiden. They have elements that remind me of Solitude Aeternus. Really, really remind me strongly of that band, even though I don't think it's immediately obvious when you hear them. And Cathedral is another one. And when I compare them to Cathedral, I'm talking about Cathedral's very first Forest Equilibrium album, when they were really playing slow and they weren't really so into sort of the more funky stoner sound that they eventually got into. This band reminds me of that. It's very, very slow. It's very, very deep, but it's very melodic. So you got that sort of Iron Maiden, Solitude Aeternus style melody going on. The vocals are very natural sounding. They alternate between clean and grunting vocals, but I like the clean vocals on this one, and I think that the clean vocals sound very natural. They sound like a real guy singing, which is something I think metal should do more of. I think that's much better than affected styles of singing personally. So So I really like the singer, and the sound is just very unique. Like doom metal kind of always goes back to bands like Sabbath and stuff like that, and so there's definitely that sort of that vibe of Sabbath, but there's so much in here. Like as I was listening to the album, like if you there's I think it was I can't remember which song specifically, but I think it's the song Candlelight. There's a riff in there, and I'm like, that sounds like White Ship from Into the Depths of Sorrow by Solitude Aeternus. And I think if you go and you listen to White Ship, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's like a, I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but it just kind of has that same sound. There's another song that sounds a lot like a My Dying Bride song from, I don't know, I think I forget which album it was, but after As the Flower Withers. And yeah, so I really enjoyed this album, and I thought it was really impressive melodically. And the final song of the album, they do this really great sort of undistorted guitar work with a large volume of reverb that I found very impressive. And again, it comes back to the melody. So that's something else that I've been going over. And the reason that I haven't been on here again is because of Ogre Gate. We just got the proof, and it looks good. I think it looks pretty good, but there's a couple of technical things I want to sort out. Number one, it's not supposed to be a hardcover, so I had to do the cover thing again. And there were a couple of concerns in the interior. And again, I think it looks good, but I had some things I wanted to adjust, so I just had to, go and check on those. And this is going to be my last day with this one because I have to send it to the artist so she can check it out. But yeah, so Ogre Gate is, as you can see, it's done, and it's just a question of fine-tuning anything and then getting it out. And hopefully we'll have this out, and then I'll be able to get the Ogre Gate in out fairly soon and quicker than I got this one out. And it's quite beastly. You can see this is a pretty big volume. This has been we've been working on this forever, so I'm really glad that that I finally got it to this point. And yeah, so again, I will be back on, and I hope people didn't get too bored with my doom metal rant. I don't normally talk about music here. I should say I listen to all kinds of music, so if I do any other music reviews here, I'll listen to stuff like that. I'll listen to Dolly Parton. I'll listen to classical. I have a very wide range of tastes, and so I don't. But that's sort of my roots. That's where I sort of when I was getting into music, when I first heard Black Sabbath, the song Black Sabbath from their first album, I was like, this is what I want to listen to all day, every day. So I got deeply into that. It's a music that had that sound. But now I listen to more styles than that. So yeah. So again, the movies, those were all worth seeing. It's the Wandering Swordsman, Duel of the Century, and then the album is Hunted by Khemmis. And this is I haven't heard an album this good in a long time. Their first album is stunningly good, and this one is really good too. I think they're different. This one gets better and better every time you listen to it. So now this is my favorite of the two albums. But the other album, I think, is more, the first time you hear it, it's more impressive because it kind of wows you with some of the melodies. This one, some of the melodies require a little more patience, and you have to wait for the payoffs. But once you get there, it's well worth it. So I will be back on with a proper review, probably, I don't know, probably in the next few days. I still have some technical stuff to go over with the Ogre Gate, but I just wanted to get on here and basically let people know I'm not dead. So, all right, I will be back on soon, and I will talk to you later.